Some men die once. Others get hunted until the West gets tired of their shadow. A year after Red Hollow, the crescent-bitten coin stopped feeling like a clue and started feeling like a promise, one that kept showing up wherever the ground turned mean. Tom wasn't a boy anymore. At 23, his shoulders had filled out, his hands had learned steadiness, and his eyes had learned the hardest skill of all, how to look at danger without letting it see your fear. The cut tag was long gone, snapped and buried in some anonymous wash. But he still carried a scar at his throat where the chain used to rub, like a reminder that survival always starts with a collar. Elias Ward rode beside him like a piece of the old world refusing to fall over. The legend had aged in the open. His hair was thinner, his breath shorter on cold mornings. And some nights Tom heard him cough like the dust had finally found its way inside. But Elias's gaze was still iron, and his silence still had teeth. They followed the coins, not because they wanted trouble, because trouble kept leaving its name in brass. The next town was called Crescent Ford, a river crossing that should have been loud with wagons and laughter, except it wasn't. The storefronts were open, the lamps were lit, and the people moved like they'd all agreed to breathe quietly. A man at the hitching rail watched Elias and Tom arrive, then looked away fast, like eye contact could be counted as a crime. Tom noticed the first coin before Elias did. It hung from a post outside the general store, pinned to a strip of cloth like a warning sign. A brass coin with a perfect crescent bite missing, catching the afternoon sun as if it wanted to be seen. Tom's voice dropped. "They're here." Elias didn't answer. He didn't need to. Across the street, a man in a clean vest stepped out of the courthouse building like he owned the steps. Not the judge, not the sheriff. Something worse. Someone who didn't need a badge to make men obey. He carried a leather book tucked under his arm and a silver pencil behind his ear. And he smiled the way a spider might smile at a fly that's walked in politely. "Travelers," the man called. "Welcome to Crescent Ford. Before you settle in, I'll need your names." Tom's hand drifted near his coat. Elias's didn't. Elias just stared. The man came closer, boots tapping on boards too clean for this part of the West. "No need to get stiff," he said. "I'm not here to rob you. I'm here to keep order." He opened his leather book with the ease of a man who enjoys writing in other people's lives. "We have a simple system. Everyone who passes through contributes." Elias finally spoke. "Contributes to what?" The man smiled wider. "To peace." Elias's eyes flicked once, toward the sheriff's office, toward the saloon, toward the people pretending not to listen. Then back to the book. "Who are you?" Tom asked. The man tapped the book lightly. "Name's Blaine Mercer," he said. "Town Assessor. I tally debts, collect fines, and make sure the crossing stays civilized." He glanced at Elias's shovel strapped to the saddle like an insult to polite society. "And you, sir, look like a man who doesn't like being tallied." Behind Mercer, two men stepped into view. Not deputies, not law, broad-shouldered, quiet, hands resting near their holsters like they were paid to stay relaxed. Elias looked past Mercer and saw it, nailed to a post near the courthouse, another crescent-bit coin, and another, like the town had been marked. Then Mercer did it, softly, smoothly, like it was nothing. He stepped just close enough to Elias's horse to reach up, and slid the barrel of a pistol beneath Elias's coat, pressing it into the small of his back as if he were adjusting a wrinkle. Loud enough for Tom to hear, he murmured, "Don't make me embarrass you in front of your boy." Tom's jaw tightened. His hand twitched. Elias didn't flinch. He just said, calm as packed earth, "Lately, I keep meeting the same kind of fool." Mercer chuckled. "Fool? No, sir. I'm a professional." And professionals don't waste time. He nodded toward Tom. Your partner there will register too. New face in town means new obligations. Tom's eyes met Elias's, a question without words. Now? Elias answered without looking. Not yet, he murmured. Mercer's smile held as he turned the leather book around. Names, he repeated. Then you can drink, eat, sleep, refuse, and we assume you're running from something. He lifted his pencil. And we have incentives for fugitives. A door creaked somewhere nearby. A woman stepped out of the saloon, face pale, eyes hard. She watched Mercer like she'd watched him for a long time. Elias caught her gaze. Just a heartbeat. Then he saw what she held behind her skirt. A small sack, heavy. Coins clinking. Mercer noticed too and smiled, almost fond. Ah, he said, turning toward her. Mrs. Kettler, late again. The woman's voice shook. I brought what I could. Mercer opened his book, flipping pages like he was choosing which lie to use. What you could, he repeated softly. Your husband's debt didn't shrink because you couldn't. He looked up at the crowd, using them as mirrors. That's not how order works. He stepped closer to the woman and held out his hand for the sack. She surrendered it. Coins spilled into Mercer's palm. He weighed them, then sighed. Short. The woman swallowed. Please. Mercer lifted one crescent-bit coin from his pocket and pressed it into her palm, closing her fingers around it like it was a blessing. Then you know what this means, he whispered. The woman's face crumpled. Mercer turned back to Elias and Tom, still smiling. We're all marked by something, he said. Some of us by debt, some by pride. Tom's voice went low. What happens when you give someone that coin? Mercer's smile didn't change, but his eyes sharpened. It means their account is closed, he said, one way or another. Elias's gaze went distant for a moment. Red hollow, bound wrists, shallow box, dirt that didn't want to be quiet. Then he turned his head slightly toward Mercer and spoke like a tombstone being set. Take that gun off my back. Mercer laughed softly. Or what? Elias's eyes were calm. Or I'll show you why graves don't care about books. Mercer's pistol pressed harder. You're in no condition for heroics, old man. Elias didn't argue. He just moved. It happened faster than most men could register. Elias's hand snapped down, trapped Mercer's wrist, and twisted, not breaking it, just turning the pistol away from flesh. At the same instant, Tom stepped in and drove his shoulder into one of Mercer's muscle men, sending him stumbling off the porch rail into the dust. Mercer cursed and yanked back, trying to free his gun. Elias didn't reach for his own weapon. He reached for what he always carried. Leverage. He hooked Mercer's coat with the shovel handle strapped at his saddle and pulled, hard, ripping Mercer off balance. Mercer's boots slipped on the boards. The pistol went off, and the shot punched into the porch post, splintering wood instead of spine. The crowd screamed and scattered. Doors slammed. The sheriff's curtains twitched like a coward blinking. Mercer stumbled back, furious now, mask cracking. Kill them! He snapped. Tom didn't freeze. He'd learned too much to freeze. He grabbed the woman, Mrs. Kettler, by the elbow and shoved her behind the water trough. Down, he hissed. Elias stepped off his horse slowly, like he had all the time in the world, and lifted his eyes to Mercer. Run, Elias said, voice low. Mercer's nostrils flared. You don't get to say that here, he spat. This town is mine. Elias's gaze flicked to the crescent coins nailed to posts. Then why do you need to remind it? Mercer drew his pistol properly now, two-handed, shaking with rage. Tom's rifle came up, not firing, just present, steady, the way Elias had taught him. A gun is a sentence. Don't speak unless you mean it. Mercer's men spread out, trying to flank. Townfolk hid. The street became a corridor of fear. Elias moved toward the trough, not to hide, but to force Mercer into line of sight where everyone could see him. Mercer fired again. The bullet slapped into the trough rim, sending water spraying into dust like blood in a lie. Elias didn't shoot back. He stepped closer. Mercer's breath hitched. "Why won't you die like a normal man?" he snarled. Elias answered with something older than anger. "Because I've been buried before." Tom saw it then. Mercer's men weren't trying to kill. They were trying to steer, herd, make Elias and Tom end up where Mercer wanted them, the courthouse steps, because the courthouse was higher ground, and higher ground makes cowards feel holy. "Elias!" Tom called, sharp. Elias didn't look back. "I see it," he murmured. Mercer retreated up the steps, still firing, still yelling orders. Townfolk cowered as if the sound itself was law. Elias climbed after him slower than Tom wanted, but Elias was choosing the pace like a man choosing where the coffin goes. Inside the courthouse, the air smelled like ink and dust and old authority. A big ledger sat on a desk, open, names filling pages like graves in a book. On the wall behind it, pinned like trophies, were crescent-bit coins, dozens, each one tagged with a name. Tom's throat tightened. "Those are people!" Mercer slammed the door and threw the bolt, trapping them inside with him and two remaining gunmen. "Welcome," Mercer said, voice shaking between pride and panic. "Now you'll understand." He gestured to the coins. "Every crossing pays. Every mouth contributes. Anyone who refuses gets marked. Anyone who speaks gets closed." Tom's eyes darted across the names. He saw a familiar one, Kettler, and next to it a red line. Tom looked at Elias. "He's killing them." Elias's gaze was fixed on the desk, not the ledger, but the stamp beside it, a steel punch shaped like a crescent, the tool that bit the coins. Mercer followed his gaze and smiled, cruel now. "Ah," he said, "you recognize craftsmanship?" Elias's voice was a rasp. "You turned dead into a death sentence." Mercer lifted his pistol again. "I turned chaos into order." Tom's jaw clenched. "Order doesn't need to aim at children," he said, thinking of Brine Hook, thinking of Red Hollow. Mercer laughed. "Order aims wherever it must." One of Mercer's gunmen stepped forward, trying to grab Tom's rifle. Tom moved, fast, using the stock to jam the man's wrist against the desk. The gunman grunted, stumbled, and swung. Elias's shovel came off his shoulder like a bell being rung. He didn't swing it like a weapon. He swung it like a door. The flat of the blade slammed into the gunman's chest and sent him sprawling back into the wall, breath knocked clean out. Another gunman raised his pistol. Tom fired once, not into flesh, into the ceiling beam above the man's head. The beam splintered, showering dust and wood chips, forcing the gunman to flinch and duck. That flinch was everything. Tom closed the distance and ripped the pistol away, throwing it under the desk. Mercer stared at Tom, stunned. "You learned," he whispered. Tom's voice was steady. "I had to." Mercer's eyes flicked to Elias, and something hateful settled there. "And you," he hissed. "You taught him to ruin my town." Elias stepped forward, breathing heavier now. Age was a weight, but it wasn't a chain. "Your town was already ruined," Elias said. "You just put clean paper over it." Mercer lifted his pistol toward Tom. Elias saw the angle. Too fast. Too close. Elias moved without thinking. He threw himself between the barrel and the boy. The shot exploded. Elias jerked, not falling, but staggering as if the air had punched him. Tom's heart stopped for half a beat. "Elias!" Elias clenched his jaw hard enough to break stone and whispered, "I'm still standing." Blood didn't pour like a movie. It didn't need to. The hit was enough to change the room. Mercer's eyes widened. He hadn't meant to hit the legend. He'd meant to break the boy. That's what cowards always aim for, the softer target. Tom's voice turned cold. "You're done." He stepped forward, rifle raised. Mercer backed up, trembling now. "You don't understand what you're touching," he snapped. "This mark, this coin, it isn't mine. It's a contract." Elias's voice came through pain like gravel. "Whose contract?" Mercer swallowed. His eyes darted to the coins on the wall like they could protect him. "The man who owns the crossing," he whispered. "The one above all of us." Tom's grip tightened. "Name." Mercer laughed once, broken. "Names are expensive." Elias took another step, shoulders tight. "Then I'll pay," he said. Mercer's gaze flicked to the door. To escape, to safety. He went for it. Tom fired, again not into flesh, into the bolt mechanism. Metal sparked, the bolt shattered, and the door swung open violently, slamming Mercer backward onto the courthouse floor. Elias was there before Mercer could rise. He planted the shovel blade beside Mercer's head, burying it into the floorboards with a heavy crack that made Mercer freeze. Elias leaned down, breath shallow, eyes iron. "No more running," he said. Mercer stared up at him, terror finally honest. "He'll come," Mercer whispered. "He'll come for you." Elias's voice was quiet. "Good." Tom grabbed the ledger off the desk and shoved it into Mrs. Kettler's hands when she cautiously appeared in the doorway, drawn by the noise. Her eyes widened. "This is your proof," Tom said. "Every name, every coin." She shook, but she held it. Mercer's mouth twisted. "You think paper saves you?" He spat. Elias's answer was a cough he tried to hide, and failed. Tom saw it. The legend was old. The legend was bleeding. Tom's voice softened, panicked. "We need to go." Elias nodded once. "We go," he said. Then he looked at Mercer. "You're coming too." Mercer's eyes widened. "What?" Elias's gaze was flat. "You'll tell the town what those coins mean," he said. "You'll say it loud, or you'll learn what a grave sounds like when it's waiting." They dragged Mercer out onto the courthouse steps. Townfolk gathered, slowly, cautiously, like animals approaching a fire they weren't sure was safe. Mrs. Kettler stepped forward, ledger clutched to her chest. Tom lifted his voice to the crowd, not shouting, just carrying. "He's been marking you," he said. "Closing accounts with a coin. Look at the names." A murmur rose. Anger. Fear. Recognition. Mercer tried to twist away, but Elias's hand clamped down hard on his shoulder. Elias spoke to the town, voice rough, shorter than it used to be. "This isn't law," he said. "It's a leash." Someone in the crowd spat. Another stepped forward, eyes wet. "My brother," a man whispered. He vanished after the crossing fine. Mrs. Kettler opened the ledger with shaking hands. A name appeared, a coin number, a red line. The crowd's fear shifted. Fear has a moment when it changes direction. Mercer sensed it and panicked. "You need me," he shouted. "You don't know what's coming." Elias leaned close to him, a whisper meant only for Mercer. "That's the point," he said. "Now you're the one who's afraid." Tom watched Elias sway slightly, just once, like wind finally found the crack in stone. Tom stepped closer, ready to catch him. Elias didn't look at Tom. He just murmured, "Not here." Mercer suddenly lunged, desperate, trying to rip free and dive into the crowd. A gunshot cracked from somewhere behind. Mercer's body jerked. He dropped hard, collapsing on the steps like a puppet whose string had been cut. The crowd screamed, scattering again. Tom spun, rifle up, searching the rooftops. Nothing, only a flutter of cloth in an upstairs window, and on the courthouse rail where the bullet must have come from, a crescent-bit coin sat balanced neatly, as if someone had placed it there after the shot. Elias stared at the coin. His face didn't change, but Tom saw something in his eyes that wasn't iron. It was recognition. Elias's voice came out low. "They were watching?" Tom's throat tightened. "Who?" Elias didn't answer with a name. He couldn't. Not yet. He only said, "The one Mercer worked for." Mrs. Kettler clutched the ledger. "What do we do?" she whispered. Tom looked at Elias, waiting for the legend to decide. Elias's breath was shallow, his pain real now. And still his gaze held the horizon like a threat. "You keep the ledger," Elias told her. "You show it to anyone with a spine." He glanced at the crowd, then back. "And you don't take the coin." Tom's voice shook. "Elias, your side—" Elias waved it off with a grim little motion. "Later," he said. "Not here." They left Crescent Ford the way they always left places, before the enemy could put a rope on the story. Outside town, on a low ridge, they stopped long enough for Tom to wrap Elias's wound with a strip of clean cloth torn from his own shirt. Elias didn't complain. He didn't thank him. He just watched the road behind them, listening for hoofbeats that might not make noise. Tom finished tying the cloth and swallowed hard. "You stepped in front of it," Tom said. "You didn't have to." Elias's eyes stayed on the horizon. "Yes," he said. "I did." Tom's voice broke, just a little. "Why?" Elias finally looked at him. The look was tired, heavy, real. "Because if you go down," Elias said, "everything I dug up dies with you." Tom's breath hitched. "So I'm—" "What? You're proof?" Elias shook his head once. "You're the next pair of hands," he said, "and the West doesn't stop needing hands." They rode again, and before the sun dropped, they found another stake beside the trail. Fresh wood, fresh cloth, another crescent-bit coin pinned to it like a breadcrumb. Tom stared at it, jaw clenched. "It's a trail," he said. "They want us to follow." Elias's voice was quiet. "They want to see how far we'll go," he replied. Tom looked at Elias's wrapped side, at his age, at the way his shoulders still refused to bend. "And how far will we go?" Elias didn't hesitate. "Until the ground stops lying," he said. "And now here's the question for you. Because the next town is already setting its trap and the coin is already waiting on the road. If someone wanted you to follow their trail on purpose, would you turn back to stay safe, or would you step forward just to see who's brave enough to mark your path?"